Hello and welcome to the Two Man Booth, your weekly scheduled podcast on the crazy world of professional wrestling. With me, Jonathon.
And me, Adam. And since this is our special WrestleMania review, we will jump straight to the show itself because it's going to take us about 70 years to recover the show, or review the show even.
Because it took 75 years to watch.
It did indeed. This was a long show.
Yeah, it was a very long show.
And
obviously, being from the UK, we did not finish watching it until 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah, that wasn't a good time in my life. So with that being said, we'll get straight on with things. We opened with the Cruiserweight Championship match as Buddy Murphy defended his championship against Tony Nese. I really enjoyed this match.
It was everything that I thought it was going to be. It was absolutely fantastic. Loved it.
They went balls to the wall from the start. Nese tripped up Murphy in the ropes and then hit the sort of hanging moonsault for two. I usually hate that spot, but he did kind of hit it so quickly that for once I kind of didn't hate the way things happened. But it's still not a spot I'm overly fond of. They sort of worked palm strikes back and forth, and then they went up top, and Murphy slipped out and hit cheeky Nando's, and then followed up with a slam for two. Nese countered Murphy's law, but Murphy hit knee strikes. Nese fought back and hit a poison rana, and then they worked into a counter exchange with both landing strikes and kicks until Murphy just absolutely mutilates Nese with a lariat. Nese battled back and hit the Jig and Tonic for two, and then Nese now hit a Sasuke special and then back and hit the 450 for two. Murphy cut off the running knees with a jumping knee strike, and Murphy's Law got a really nice two count as Nese made it to the ropes. Nese cut him off with a super kick and then a German into the buckles and hit the running Nese to win the championship. Very good match, right result, thoroughly enjoyable.
Like I said, it was literally everything that we thought it was going to be. We knew this was going to be a really good match, and the way they've built it up over the last couple of months over 205 Live, I was really looking forward to it. And absolutely, it was everything that I thought it was going to be. It was the right winner, and I am very much looking forward to seeing Tony Nese on 205 Live now in this coming week as the champ and see where they go with it. And I do wonder whether Buddy, I don't think he needs to be in 205 Live much longer. I don't think they'd waste him on the main roster, but unless they do a face turn for Buddy, I think he's kind of done. He's had the big long reign. He's kind of done what he was there to do, I think, which was stabilise the division. Obviously, after Neville and the division was all stabilised, I think he's kind of done everything he needs to there now.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but I think you're right. The main roster would not be suitable for Buddy Murphy, unfortunately.
If he stays there and just is the ace of that division, I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Next up, we had the Women's Battle Royal. This was just a bog-standard Battle Royal early on until sort of the Riot Squad kind of dominated, took everybody out and sort of took control of the match. They beat down Dana Brooke, but Dana fired up and dumped Ruby. She then dumped Liv, which leads me to believe Dana's in for some kind of push.
She had some really, really nice moments. What I will say, mind, is on... We're not going to talk about Raw, but she was interviewed... I don't think it was on Raw, but it was...
No, it was on Raw. It was the segment on Raw because I watched the full show.
Yeah, so I think she is in line for at least a mini push. But she did well in this match, so she deserves at least something.
So Vega cut her off, hit the double knees, but Mandy and Sonya tossed her. They then dumped Dana. They attacked Mickey, but Mickey eliminated Mandy, and then Sonya eliminated Mickey. Logan, Asuka, and Sonya were the last three. Asuka ran wild. Logan cut her off, though, and tossed both of them. But then Carmella snuck in and dumped Logan for the win.
Where was... I didn't even notice Carmella.
Yeah, it must have been somewhere in the early stage of the match where just everything was happening, but nothing was happening at the same time.
I feel like they literally did this just because it's like that, like the dance break stuff and all. Like, I can't believe Asuka didn't win this.
Yeah, bad decision.
Bad WWE, bad booking.
So next up, speaking of bad booking, we had the Raw Tag Team title matches. The Revival defended their titles against Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. You know what? This was a pretty good match.
We called this
a
month ago, at least.
But Ryder and Hawkins worked quite well in this match. It was a really well worked tag team match. Shock of all shocks with the Revival being involved.
But like we said, they are Hawkins and Ryder are talented wrestlers. They can more than hold their own. And we said this when we were watching the match. We shouldn't have been shocked that it was decent because Hawkins and Ryder, despite the way they're booked as jobbers, they are good wrestlers.
So Hawkins ran wild on the champions, picking up near falls, but Dawson finally cut him off and they worked into a double down. Ryder tagged in, hit the Rough Rider, and then did the Dynamite Kid Tiger Mask suplex spot to the floor, or if you hit that spot, the Eddie Edwards, Davey Richards spot, where they'd already done a superplex and then decided to do that spot over the ropes. But it worked fine in this match. It broke down on the floor as everybody brawled, and then Dawson hit a just sick-looking brainbuster on the floor on Hawkins. They went back in, and Hawkins looked dead until he cradled Dawson and ended the streak and won the titles. So Hawkins, 7,543 match losing streak came to an end at the hands of the Revival.
Like, objectively,
But
objectively, the storyline was actually okay. The fact that it's just the Revival is what angers me, because I know they deserve better. Like, can they go to SmackDown where they might actually be treated better, please?
It's not even the fact that it's the Revival, it's the fact that they've been pushed so poorly that something like this actually really hurts them. If you've got a really strong tag team, this type of storyline might have worked and might not have been as bad.
Totally agree. The match itself, objectively, was a decent match.
And you know what? If they'd spent the time actually telling this story rather than starting the story and then stopping it dead and all of a sudden it's announced in... Was it even like on a WWE.com exclusive, or was it just announced through the website?
I think it was just announced through Twitter and the website.
Yeah, like...
Don't quote me on that, though, but I'm pretty sure it was.
Next up, we had the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. I thought this was actually significantly worse than the Women's Battle Royal.
Yeah, it was. It was a pretty poor Battle Royal.
It was just an absolute mess. People just were eliminated willy-nilly. Harper was in there, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, he was.
Ali was eliminated like it was nothing. Andrade was eliminated in the stupidest spot I've seen since the turn of the century, where he just was on the apron, and I can't even remember who it was, but he just jumped up and Hurricane Ran at whoever it was off the apron, but eliminated himself at the same time.
It was like the Randy Savage thing, where like Randy's suddenly like, "Oh no, I've eliminated myself." Like, yeah, you.
But at least Randy Savage, the actual man, screwed up, and it wasn't bad booking. They actually booked him to do a Hurricane Runner off the apron.
Smart.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. The Hardys attacked Braun, and then the Saturday Night Live geeks snuck in and tried to help, but Braun fought everybody off and dumped the Hardys, and then it went down to Braun and the two losers from Saturday Night Live. One of them begged off and brought in some weird person in a suit. Was he a lawyer? I don't know.
It wasn't explained, I think, but I'm assuming he was a lawyer.
We watched the pre-show on my phone at a pub, so we couldn't hear any commentary, so if it was explained, I don't know who it was. But whoever it was, Braun killed him and then eliminated one of the geeks and then missed a big boot and almost got eliminated by the other geek, but Braun fought him off and eliminated him.
I genuinely bought that, as well, though, that bit where he was...
Why?
I couldn't, because I have zero faith in their ability to book wrestling.
Yeah.
Sorry, sports entertainment.
Well, this kind of sucked. So, with that was our main event of the pre-show as well.
Right.
Yay, great pre-show.
I was so pumped for Mania by this point.
Speaking of being pumped for Mania, I was so excited by the opening segment as Alexa Bliss came out and brought out Hulk Hogan.
Yay.
Yeah.
I mean, like... I go sort of back and forth on what I think about Hogan. Like, sometimes I kind of think that, like, people change and people should be forgiven for what they've done, but at the same time I end up thinking, like, yeah, but what Hogan did was so awful, and it feels like they literally used the death of Mean Gene as a way just to get him back in the company. It did feel a little bit like that. But apparently Hogan, went and apologised to Big E Langston backstage, so it does appear, at least in some way, that Hogan is trying to make amends for what he did.
My thing with it is just, it feels like you show no remorse, and I know you've just mentioned the Big E thing, and what Hogan said, it's far more important what Big E thinks of that than what I think of that.
Totally.
But just as a fan, I just don't want to see Hulk Hogan.
No, not anymore.
No. So with that, Paul Heyman came out and he had a very angry look on his face. He said if Brock wasn't going to be the main event, then they won't wait because they've got to go to Vegas, which I thought at the time was a thinly veiled AEW thing, but turns out it was UFC for some reason.
It's UFC. They must have an event in Las Vegas.
Do they?
They must do. That's where a lot of their fights are held.
Yeah, it's where he's ultimately appreciated, apparently.
Very few people are appreciating the UFC at the moment.
So we opened up with the Universal Championship match. Seth came out and Lesnar just attacked him before the bell, and they did a brawl all around ringside before the match had even started. Brock hit an F5 and just mauled him and tossed him over the announce table once, twice. I think he did it a third time as well.
Made Rollins look great.
Yeah, and then they finally rang the bell and Brock just took Seth to Suplex City. And then all of a sudden, there was a ref bump.
So what happened then?
There was a low blow by Seth on Brock.
Yep, because
Babyface.
cheating.
Yay.
And it's not like, before anyone says it's like, oh, but Eddie used to cheat. Like, Rollins' character is not built like that. He's not an opportunist in that way. And I hated it. Hated it.
So the super kick follows, and then a curb stomp, another curb stomp, and then a third curb stomp, and we have a new champion.
I mean, I'm really glad that Rollins is champion, and hopefully this will be forgotten, but the fact that he basically won the title as a babyface by cheating, I'm not okay with.
Yeah, like, I didn't mind Seth winning in a short period of time. I didn't mind this match going short, but just the low blow, it felt like it would have been...
Like, was there not another way that he could have gained the advantage?
It would have been one thing if Seth had looked really strong in the build-up to this match, and it was almost like, well, Brock attacked him before the bell, so it's all fair game.
Yeah.
But I really felt like, because of how badly he'd been booked in the build-up, he needed
really
to
strong.
look really, really strong here. So it's not even, in a vacuum, I feel like we say this all the time, but in a vacuum, this booking wasn't the worst booking in the world. But because of the story they told in the lead-up to Mania, actually, yes, it was horrendous booking.
But this is the problem. I think when we talk about it being good in a vacuum, that's because they don't book long term. They book almost, it seems like, from week to week, show to show.
What was it you told me before we did this podcast? When did they decide that this was going to open the show?
I'm trying to remember where I found this. I believe it was per The Observer, but I will check. I'll check before we record Friday's episode. But I found out that they decided that this was going to open at 5:30 local time. So the pre-show had already started. WrestleMania as a show had already started by the time that they decided this was going to open the show, which shows just how
they book
unprepared.
week to week, day to day, hour to hour.
Unprepared they are. It is literally their show of shows. How can you not know the match order going into the show?
So next up we had AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. King joined commentary for this match.
Why?
Just because we've got to find a way to get King on commentary at some point. It's Mania. It has to happen, apparently. Orton teased an RKO early, but AJ got out. He fought back with a drop kick and then a slingshot forearm to the floor. They worked back and forth for a while, but then Randy grounded things. Styles fought back and laid in right hands. He followed with a flurry and hit the sliding forearm. Styles then hit the Ushigoroshi for 2. Styles teased the clash, but Randy hit the sort of snap power slam for 2. Styles laid in kicks, but Randy fought back with right hands and then cut off the calf killer with a stomp. Styles fought off the draping DDT, and the calf killer did actually follow, but Randy made the ropes. Styles then faked out Randy as he went to jump, and Randy went for the RKO. Smart, and then hit the springboard 450 for 2. Randy then cut him off with a neck breaker, took Styles up top and laid in the rights. He followed him up and hit a Barry Windham-esque superplex. It was beautiful. Randy followed again with rights, looked for the RKO, but Styles countered with an enziguri and a roll-up for 2. And then Randy hit the RKO for 2. Styles rolled to the apron. Randy pulled him up top and looked for a super RKO, but AJ slid out and hit the Pele. Randy went to the floor and Styles springboarded into the flying forearm, back in, and Styles fought off an RKO attempt and hit the phenomenal forearm for the win. This was good. Not great, but very good.
Yeah, very good. I really enjoyed it. And I think, honestly, when you put together everything that went into the build-up of this match and everything that they've done, and then the match itself, I honestly think you've got to say this is the best overall program of this year's WrestleMania when you think about it.
Which is not great.
No, it's not great. But when you think this is the most rounded, consistent program that they've put together.
Totally agree. Lacey happened. No, don't. Just leave it.
But
you want to know what she did? She walked out. She got to the bottom of the ramp. She walked back.
Thank you.
I assume that's what happened because genuinely I can't remember that happening.
Yeah, let's go with yes.
Yeah, let's go with yes. Who cares?
I kind of zone it out now.
Yeah. So there was a fatal 4-way match for the SmackDown Tag Team titles next, which was the Usos versus The Bar versus Nakamura and Rusev versus Ricochet and Black, fresh off their awesome match at TakeOver.
And they were super over as well.
They were. This was really, really good, I thought. They just went 100 miles an hour from the start. Ricochet looked awesome in the match. Black looked awesome in the match. Pretty much everybody, to be fair, looked really good in this match. I don't think Nakamura and Rusev got much, but everybody else looked really strong.
But every time Nakamura and Black were in the ring, we've talked about before, haven't we, how we think they have clear chemistry, that it would be a great singles match.
Yeah, I'd really look forward to that.
Yeah, but can we just say, like, how far has Shinsuke Nakamura fallen in 1 year?
Well, he was in the WWE Championship match last year.
Facing AJ, who was probably at that time the most dominant champ they had.
And when he turned heel after the match, that was arguably the biggest reaction anybody got at last year's Mania.
Yeah.
But never mind. So Ricochet and Rusev were in the ring, and Rusev hit a Uranage for 2. He took him up top, and Cesaro then tagged himself in, and the Usos joined in, and they all hit a Tower of Doom, but Ricochet rolled through because Ricochet is just awesome. Just incredibly talented. He went up top and hit the 630 on Sheamus for 2 as the others made the save. Jay tagged in, flew into an uppercut. It broke down into the big move sort of session, and then super kicks by the Usos, and the big Us double splash connected as the Usos retained.
Very, very good match. I enjoyed this. And just like we said with the other matches, this was, the right decision, the right team won. The Usos are in no way ready to drop those titles, and I don't think they should be for a while. I can't see, apart from New Day, I can't see any team that really can compete with them at the moment.
To be honest, I think the Usos should benefit massively from the Superstar shake-up next week, because that division's really, really good, but is a little bit sort of stale at the minute, because how long have the Usos and the New Day and the Bar been going at it? It seems like forever, so it would be good to get some fresh faces in the tag division over there.
Revival?
Yeah, that would be great. Imagine the Usos versus the Revival.
Oh, be out this
Killer
world.
match.
Awesome NXT tag teams.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So they brought out the 2019 Hall of Fame class next, where he then went to a Falls Count Anywhere match between The Miz and Shane McMahon. I think you liked this a lot better than I did.
Yeah, but you're saying that as if I loved it. I thought it was. I think I didn't do a star rating or anything, but I think when we were actually at the show, I think I remember going, that was a very solid 4 out of 10. Like, it wasn't middle average, but it wasn't atrocious, but my God, was it boring.
It just went on forever.
Like, nothing really happened.
I haven't looked at the actual sort of results on Cage Match or anything, but this must have went 15, 20 minutes.
You've said people loved it as well.
Yeah, I've seen loads of good reaction from people.
What were they watching?
I don't know. Very different match to me. They brawled early on. Well, actually, they brawled
the whole thing,
yeah.
the whole thing. But a lot of it was just spent like walking places.
Shane cleared off an announce table and then hit Miz with the monitor. He went up top, and the big elbow drop was kind of stopped as Miz's dad protects his son. Is that a babyface turn?
Yeah, it must be, because he's definitely a heel.
He was definitely a heel coming in. So Miz's dad's turned babyface.
He is the walrus.
That's the big thing that we got out of this match. So he got in the ring, and Shane attacked with knee strikes after backing off, but Miz made the save. They then brawled some more, went into the crowd. Miz called for his dad to help, which was super babyface. Let's 2-on-1 the heel.
Help me, Dad.
Yeah. So they brawled onto a platform in the crowd, and Shane slammed Miz into an LED board. The DDT followed for 2. Miz fought back. They kept working and brawling. Miz dumped the table onto Shane, ruining the international commentary position.
Scumbags.
I know. Miz is no longer a babyface.
Like Funaki deserves better.
He deserves much better. And then put Shane through a table and covered for 2. Miz knocked Shane over the guardrail, and Shane bounced off a golf cart, and Miz covered for 2 again. They brawled onto, I don't know what type of scaffolding it was, but it was a really tall piece of scaffolding, and I was like, oh, here we go, we're getting our annual Shane spot.
Jumps off things.
Yeah.
It genuinely felt like it had been built purely for this. I don't know what you thought, but it was just like, what on earth is this?
So Shane got to the top, Miz followed, and Shane begged off, but Miz attacked and suplexed Shane off and onto the platform below, whatever that was, the bit of padding they had for them to fall onto. And I couldn't really see it on camera, but apparently Shane pinned him.
I think it was one of those things where like Shane fell on top of him. So therefore he got the pin by the virtue of just being the one that fell second.
I thought this sucked.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And it was in all of the ways that it shouldn't. This was everything that I thought it was going to be.
Next up, we had the Fatal 4-Way for the Women's Tag Team Championships. this was different in the sense that I really thought this was going to suck, but it wasn't that bad. I wouldn't go out my way to say this was a great match. It wasn't. But it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I do wonder how much of that is tainted's not the word, but affected by how much we loved the team that were chosen to win this match. I do think, because for those that don't know, obviously, we're both massive fans of the Iconics. We've mentioned it before in this podcast. And we went absolutely mental at the end of the match.
So they sort of worked back and forth between all the teams early on. And then Natalya came in and attacked Sasha and Bayley and sort of put a double sharpshooter on both of them. But Jax and Tamina came in. They took out the Iconics with Samoan drops. They both headed up top looking for splashes, but Beth shoved Jax to the floor. Natalya and Beth took out Tamina, but Banks cut them off. Bayley hit the top rope elbow, and Banks hit the frog splash for 2. They took Beth up top, but Natalya made the save and powerbombed Banks. Beth grabbed Bayley and hit a super glam slam, but Peyton Royce made the save and Billie Kay pinned Bayley because Peyton had tagged herself in as Beth was going for the super glam slam off the top. Really, really cool ending, really smart. There was a lot of people in the Southfield very confused because
she did so fast.
They'd missed the tag in, but like you said, we saw it happening, and I stood up and went, she got the tag. And at that point, you realised what was going on, and then Billy slid in, hit the got the 1, 2, 3, and it was just like we both went mental. It was awesome.
It was that our biggest pop of the night?
I think I popped more for Kofi and Becky winning,
yes, you're right.
This was probably third.
WrestleMania is iconic.
It certainly is.
Awesome. We know they're not the greatest workers in the ring, but their character work is brilliant, and I was so genuinely chuffed for them because they seemed genuinely emotional, didn't they? To everyone.
They certainly did. And with that, we move on to the match of the night by some margin.
Country mile.
This was absolutely awesome. The WWE Championship match as Daniel Bryan defended the WWE Championship against Kofi Kingston. It was really solidly built. Bryan was so good in this match. Like, Kofi, don't get me wrong, got all the headlines.
In other news, water's wet.
But Bryan was so unbelievably good in this match. Kofi dropkicked Bryan to the floor and flew, but Bryan moved and Kofi just ate the announce table in a really sick spot. They worked back and forth with Bryan taking advantage of the sort of ribs. He followed with a draping knee strike and covered for 2. And he then grounded the action as we saw the babyfaces watching from backstage. I know at that point you said, I think they're hamming this up too much, but I didn't hate it.
I just thought it was a bit much, but to be honest, like they did similar things with Daniel Bryan during the Yes Movement run, so I can't really criticize it too much when I loved it back then.
Bryan hit the corner drop kicks, and then Kofi went for the double stomp, but Bryan countered it into a Boston Crab, which was awesome. Kofi fought and made the ropes, but Bryan followed up with kicks and took Kofi up top. Kofi fired back with elbows and knocked Bryan to the mat, and then hit a move for 2. They traded strikes, firing up, and Bryan countered Trouble in Paradise, but Kofi cradled him for 2. Kofi followed with a high cross for 2, but Bryan transitioned into the label lock. Kofi kicked his way out, but Bryan cut him off with stomps. The Busaiku knee was countered into a sunset flip for 2, and then the SOS followed for a near fall. But Bryan went straight back into the label lock. He laid in the elbows and really cranked back, but Kofi again made the ropes. Bryan laid in kicks again, but Kofi fired up and started absorbing them. He went full Hogan as he sort of fired up properly, and then laid in kicks, and then hit a reverse suplex for 2. To the floor they went, and Rowan took out New Day until Kofi took him out. The midnight hour followed, and Rowan was taken out of the match completely, and at this point I think everybody knew Kofi was going over. Kofi countered the dive and missed Trouble in Paradise, and the Busaiku knee from Bryan only got 2. The Southfield, which was the pub we were watching this in, went absolutely mental when Kofi kicked out the Busaiku knee. Bryan laid in the stomps, just absolutely destroying Kofi, and then the label lock was locked back on, but Kofi fought. Bryan laid in sort of crossface strikes, but Kofi fought out again and laid in strikes of his own. He then hit stomps, and then Trouble in Paradise, and Kofi Mania ran wild. We have a new WWE champion. This was awesome.
And he got the old belt back, which was awesome as well.
He did, yes.
This was genuinely it wasn't a perfect match, but it was very, 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 very good. Easily the match of the night. Kofi more than held his own. but this was a masterpiece from Daniel Bryan. It really, really was. Again, he's had a few matches that are almost perfect since he's come back, and he is. I'm not sure he's quite at the level that he was in like '06.
No,
but he's very much easily at the level that he was before he retired. I would say.
Totally agree. And you know what? This was a match this was a weekend rather full of great matches. This was probably the third best match of the weekend. I think Gargano Cole was better, and I think Ibushi Naito was better.
You think it was better than Okada Jay
Yes,
White?
I do.
Yeah, I do actually as well. Yeah, I'd put Okada Jay White as number 4.
And I'm not being funny. If you can go out on a weekend and have a better match than Kazuchika Okada,
you've done decently, haven't you?
You're doing really, really well.
From the looks of things as well, I did see on Twitter that I think it was, well, it must have been Brie. I don't think it was Brian, but Brie had posted a picture of Brie and Brian and then their child, and I think it was after the match, just from the way that Brian's gear looked a little bit like not perfect, for lack of a better word, and a bit like ruffled. And Brian still had the hemp title. So I wonder whether they've just given him that to let him keep it, because it's not going to be around again.
Yeah, it's a nice memento.
Or maybe he keeps it and still declares himself the planet's champion. I don't know. But either way, it does appear that they've let him keep it.
So Kofi celebrated with the New Day and then his son's post-match. It was just a lovely, lovely moment, really genuine. And then we had to go straight back to awful Comedy Central as we went backstage to see Alexa Bliss meeting with the guys from the Battle Royal, the Saturday Night Live guys, who were all banged up. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash turned up dressed as doctors.
As you do.
And offered a free prostate exam.
That was uncomfortable, wasn't it?
It was a segment straight out of WCW, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
Was Russo around for this?
He may well have been. So next up we had the WWE United States Championship match between champion Samoa Joe and Rey Mysterio, and much like we said on the last podcast, I think during our predictions, with Rey being injured as expected, this went quite short.
Yeah, it was a bit short, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. So Joe attacked at the bell, but Rey fought back with a DDT, a Hurricane Rana, and then hit the 619, but Joe then cut him off and locked in the Coquina clutch, and Rey was done.
Yeah, unfortunately, like, they could have had a much, much better match, and I think we all know that they could have, but obviously Rey was not 100%, so as a result, they just had to go with what they could, and Rey did what he had to do, basically.
And you know what? Joe got a huge win.
Yeah, and it made Joe look great, and anything that makes Joe look great is anything I'll be in massive support of.
So next up we had Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre, the feud that has just lit up my world.
Yeah, what was amazing is that obviously the people that we were with when we were going to watch the show hadn't seen all of Raw, and one of them in particular asked me sort of like, why don't you like this feud so much? And I explained that basically the whole angle's been based off, yeah, you had cancer, but beating me is much harder than having cancer, and don't put your family through that stuff again. And he was genuinely stunned. And I just said, yeah, it's just they're disgusting. Like, they genuinely do disgusting things that offend and upset people. Rant over.
So Roman clotheslined Drew at the floor. He followed up but missed the drive-by kick, and Drew followed up with strikes. Drew hit a suplex on the floor and then back in, and Drew hit a just brutal-looking reverse Alabama slam for 2. They then worked up top, but Reigns crotched Drew into the Tree of War, but Drew hit a spider suplex in just an awesome spot of strength. Drew talked trash, but Reigns fired back and they traded strikes. Reigns hit clotheslines, a big boot and the drive-by kick. Reigns then sent him in the barricade and hit a Samoan drop. They worked back in. Reigns maintained control and hit a Superman punch. The spear followed, and Drew was done.
This was fine, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, you know
fine. What? It wasn't good. It wasn't awful. It was fine.
Yeah. As a WrestleMania match, this was probably a letdown, but Roman just went out there and hit all these big stuff, and I think that's all the crowd really wanted to see. This was not a marquee match for this Mania. It wasn't a headlining match. It was a lot more on the show that people were far more excited for, but they just wanted to see Roman come out and just beat the ever-loving hell out of Drew and just win and hit all these big moves, and this kind of accomplished that.
And let's be fair as well, this is Roman's first singles match back since, coming back. So I can't really criticize too much for that.
Yeah. Elias was here next, and they had sort of video with him playing all kinds of instruments. And,
It was awesome.
and just being in different places at once. What were you so obsessed with? Was it the fact that one Elias was way taller than
One
the other
Elias was taller than the other. Like, did one of them have more growth hormone? I don't know.
So he was then interrupted by a Babe Ruth video, and then the Doctor of Thugonomics came out.
Yeah, from Boston. Well, from Massachusetts.
In a New York Yankees
In a
shirt.
Yankees. Yeah. I know that was seen as old gimmick that was based on, like sports memorabilia and wearing all of that. But like, really, like he couldn't have worn like a Mets or something like that. Like the Mets would have been easier because they don't have a massive rivalry that's historic with Boston.
So he came out and he rapped and said a lot of stuff about Elias that is probably not kosher for this family-friendly podcast.
It was awesome, though.
He talked about burying Elias, and then he laid Elias out with what the attitude adjustment used to be called.
He called it the FU. Fine. Like, this reminded me of a time when Cena was legitimately really cool.
It's a bit different for me because I hated Doctor of Thugonomics.
See,
Cena.
I liked Cena.
So that was actually where my Cena hatred, if you want to call it that, was probably at its peak. Whereas for most people, it was much later when Cena was sort of Super Cena, which I didn't hate as much because I thought he improved so much in the ring. That
he did.
That I didn't care to hate him as much. But during the Doctor of Thugonomics phase, I just didn't get him at all. So. But next up, we moved on to the No Holds Barred match with Triple H's career on the line between Batista and, you guessed it, Triple H. HBK was on commentary for the match. Batista came out with the most douche-tista entrance of all time in an SUV with security detail. And then Triple H got a Mad Max entrance. I don't know why, but he got a Mad Max entrance.
Hunter's entrances are always cool at Mania now, though.
So this was very similar to the Shane Miz match in the sense that it was very brawl heavy and not a lot of what they did really worked all that well. They worked with a chain. Triple H whipped Batista with it and then choked him out and then whipped him into the steps. And then he used them on Batista's fingers. He stomped away on the fingers, and then he grabbed a chair and some nose pliers. Like needle nose pliers.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and sort of pulled Batista's nose ring out.
And his nose was bleeding.
Yeah, I do think it was a fake nose ring though, and that was just purely coincidental.
I do hope so.
Yeah, but then again, of all the stupid things pro wrestlers have done to make something in a match look cool,
that would not be.
That would not rank very highly.
Would not rank in the top 50.
We're talking about the form of entertainment here, where people, or at least used to, cut themselves just to get blood in a match.
Yeah, and like jump off things and legitimately hurt themselves.
Well, we saw Shane McMahon do that earlier in the night.
Or staple things to people's foreheads. And
that's very true, yeah. And that's more ECW than WWE, but...
Wrestling's weird, isn't it?
It is a little bit weird. Triple H and Batista fought on the outside, and then Batista slammed Triple H onto an announce table. He cleared off another and slammed him onto that, but it didn't break. I am the table. Batista slammed Triple H into the barricade and then slammed him on the table again. He followed up with chair shots and back in the ring that got the cover for 2. Triple H then fought back and they went back and forth again. Batista got the steps and laid out Triple H. He put the steps up on an announce table, pulled Triple H up and looks for a powerbomb, but Triple H backdropped him onto the table, which again didn't break. These tables have got some serious...
Hey, I'm proud of them.
Yeah, the tables did a stand-up job tonight.
Matt Hardy obviously made them. They will not die.
Triple H then speared Batista through another announce table, which then finally broke, and they fought their way to the apron, but both men were exhausted by this point. Hunter grabbed his sledgehammer, but back in walked into a spear for 2. Batista got the sledgehammer, but Triple H fought him off and took it, but Batista hit the spinebuster, and he then hit the Batista bomb for 2. Batista brought in the bottom part of the steps as this just sort of just stopped as a match, essentially, at this point. It just got so slow.
It did.
They worked up top, but Triple H slid out and powerbombed Batista onto the steps. He hit the pedigree, but Batista kicked out. The fans were dead as well.
Yeah, and
which I didn't expect.
No, but it was noticeable that the crowd as a whole quietened down pretty much from the Kofi Bryan match onwards. Mm-hmm. They'd got so hot during that match that I think, and obviously we will discuss that, you know, this was a very long show.
Oh, it was.
I think they were burnt out at this point, and it was just too much.
So Batista cut off a sledgehammer shot and hit a DDT on the steps, but then who turned up at ringside? The one bit of this match that I really did like.
Woo!
Ric Flair tipped up and gave Triple H another sledgehammer. Hunter hit Batista with it and then hit the pedigree, and it was over. It went 26 minutes.
26 minutes of fairly average underwhelmingness.
Yeah.
This was never good. Like we've said, this was never going to be a classic, but it wasn't great.
No. And you know what? I'd really enjoyed the build. Apart from the first promo they did, I'd really enjoyed the build.
Yeah.
So it's a shame.
And Batista's obviously now gone on to announce his retirement. And although it may not have been a great match, I think at the same time, I think it means a lot for Batista to have his last match against Hunter. So it won't. It's not going to be remembered in the annals of WrestleMania history. But at the same time, it wasn't offensive. It just was a bit boring, and it went too long.
And speaking of things that sucked, next up we had Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin.
Oh, don't.
Yeah, I'm not going to cover this in great detail. Corbin escaped the ankle lock and hit a deep 6 for 2. Angle then hit the angle slam for 2. He locked on the ankle lock again, but Corbin escaped. Angle hit some Germans, headed up top and missed the moonsault, which he actually...
It was pretty good.
It was a pretty good moonsault, to be fair.
Angle always did a beautiful moonsault.
And Corbin hit End of Days and won. And I know that historically it's a wrestling trope that when you are leaving, you do the job. You look up at the lights and you do the job. But everybody wanted to see Kurt Angle win this match.
Yeah, no one wanted to see. And it wasn't like from a heel-face dynamic. It was just that people wanted to see
And I'm not being
Angle
funny.
go out.
Who cares about Baron Corbin?
No one.
If they were
Even
putting
Baron Corbin's mother doesn't care about him.
Yeah, if they were putting somebody over that was actually,
on their way to superstardom.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd do the job to Baron Corbin.
No.
And next up we had the Intercontinental Championship match. I will be dead honest. It was probably, 4 in the morning at this point?
Yeah.
I was dying at this point. I was so tired. I did not see much of this match.
No, I saw the start of it, so I can't review this extremely well. So I know at the start it was largely Balor on the attack and on the offensive. My recollection of it then goes hazy in the middle, whether I had just either lost consciousness momentarily or I just was simply so tired I couldn't process the information. I don't know, but I do remember that I came back for the finish.
All I remember was Balor battling back towards the end, because I think Lashley must have been in control, hitting some kicks, and then powerbombing Lashley, which I thought was quite impressive, and then hitting the double stomp for the win. That's all I really remember of the match.
Yeah. The Demon entrance was cool. I do remember that.
Not as cool as usual, though.
The paint itself, I didn't think was really good. I've seen, I do feel like NXT, the paint has become less and less cool. Like, it's not as imaginative, it's not as creative. In NXT, they used to come up with some really cool and crazy designs for it. But, this was fine. It was fine. This was just getting to the point where it was becoming a joke how long this show was. And we were getting very tired. And obviously, we are in the UK. It's different for us to those in America. But from the reports that I've heard from Brian Alvarez, people finished this show happy, but were streaming for the exits. If people in America were tired and wanting to go home, imagine what we were like when it was 5:30 at the end of this show.
And speaking of the end of the show, it's time for the main event of the evening. The winner-takes-all championship match between Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey. Charlotte got the Ric Flair-style Great American Bash entrance, which was a super, super cool touch in the helicopter. Just awesome. And then Ronda got Joan Jett playing out of the ring for her sort of entrance. And then Becky just got kind of a regular entrance, which is fine because she was the most over thing on the show for at least 2 hours at this point.
Yeah, she didn't need to.
Yeah. So this was a pretty good match, but not as good as I was hoping it was going to be. I think it was a combination of the fact that I was so tired, and I feel like the crowd in the stadium was actually quite tired as well, because the reaction to the match wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be.
I think people were there to see Becky win and then just go home. Yeah. They were holding out for that one last pop, and that was all they would give at that point.
But apart from that, it was just your stereotypical triple threat match with two people in, one person on the outside that just worked back and forth and back and forth. Eventually, towards the end, it did start to get pretty good. It started when sort of Becky came in and rolled into a disarm her on Ronda, which was quite a cool spot. But Ronda powered up and buckle bombed Becky. She then missed the charge and Becky got the disarm her in the ropes, but Charlotte made the save. And then Charlotte and Becky battled up top and Charlotte hit a Spanish fly on Becky for 2. Just a ridiculous show of athleticism from Charlotte.
She is amazing.
She's brilliant. Ronda came back in and Charlotte hit the suplex, but Becky attacked but got sent into the buckles. Charlotte booted her to the floor and then worked over the leg of Ronda, obviously setting up for the figure 8. She posted the leg and then did sort of the figure 4 hanging off the ring post. Becky broke it up, but Charlotte slammed her into the barricade. The figure 4 into the figure 8 followed for Charlotte, but Becky flew in with, I think it was a leg drop to break it up. Becky got a table, slid it in the ring and then set it up in the corner. Charlotte cut her off. Sorry, it was just towards the corner, not actually in the corner. That spot came later. And then Charlotte laid Becky on the table and headed up top, but Becky cut her off. Ronda joined in and they dumped Charlotte. Ronda followed up with strikes, working over Becky, but Charlotte speared both of them. Charlotte then set up the table in the corner, slammed Ronda into it, and then speared Becky for 2. Charlotte then got sent to the table, but it only got sort of a partial break. It didn't fully break. Becky and Ronda then brawled. Ronda hit a jumping knee strike and sort of rolled through into the Piper's Pit, but Becky countered into a crucifix pin where Ronda's shoulders bounced up at the count of 1, but the referee just continued counting, and we got the 3 count as Becky Lynch is the Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion.
Well, they got to the eventual conclusion that they should have.
I thought it was a good match, but not great.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the finish was a bit of a letdown because, I don't know why Becky had to win with a fluke pin. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining because Becky's walked out with both belts, so I'm not going to say she's not being booked strongly. But it just felt like this is WrestleMania.
Leave no doubt.
Yeah,
you leave no doubt that Becky's the man.
Ending. I always like it. It's not the type of show where you do sort of a duff ending in the main event.
So like we booked together. We don't do it as much anymore because of doing this podcast. But when we used to spend time together before doing this podcast, one of the main things that Adam and I used to do to be creative with wrestling was that we used to book it. And we, not to be extremely arrogant, but we do consider ourselves pretty decent in terms of writing stories that...
Yeah, that's not arrogant at all, dude.
Okay, well, at some point we'll do a rebooking episode and see what people think.
Yeah.
But when we booked this, like, how have we, and we've said it repeatedly, how did we book it? First off, who would we have had Becky facing in the match?
Well, Ronda.
Right, and how would Becky have won?
With the disarm her.
Yeah, and how would Ronda have lost?
By tapping out.
Exactly, like it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out.
No, and it just was a bit of a shame because it felt like Mania kind of ended on a damn squib.
Yeah, but at the same time, everybody was so tired that they popped for Becky because that was what they wanted to see, and then they were happy to go home. And again, from what I've heard from Brian Alvarez, that's pretty much what happened. I must be honest, like Matt, I was in and out during this match. It was just too long. And I think after we finish covering this match, we'll talk about that because I think we need to stress this point. But like, I was too tired to really concentrate. I'm glad you actually know what happened. I know Becky won, and at some point I'll go back over this match because I'll need to see the proper reactions. But I know what happened. But
Well, Becky celebrated after the match, and that was how Mania went off the air. I thought this was a good WrestleMania.
I think it's a good WrestleMania, but not one that'll be remembered.
My God, was it too long?
Yeah, like I know we're in the UK, so it's different. It's different for us, so it's more difficult. But like 7 hours,
7.5.
Sorry, like it's just too long.
I mean, our time, the pre-show started at 10 o'clock, 10 p.m, and the main show ended at roughly 5:30 a.m.
Like, was it 16 hours? Sorry, 16 matches.
Yeah, 16 matches on the full card.
Yeah, like Wrestle Kingdom has 11 at the most, and it does absolutely everything it has to do.
But you know what it is as well, and I'm not having to go at the talent or anything, but because of A, the talent they've got, and B, how New Japan books, when they do super long shows, they don't feel that long to me. They never do a 7.5 hour show, don't get me wrong, but
if it's 4.5, it flies.
Yeah, what was Wrestle Kingdom this year? Was it 4.5, 5 hours?
It was around
like
4.5, I think.
Yeah. You know, and at no point during that show did I feel like it was going long, or did I feel like, my God, the show's gone on forever. Whereas during Mania, by like pretty much after the Brian Kofi match, I don't know if it's because I got so excited during that match, but pretty much once that had happened, I was really quite flat for quite a while.
I think that's WWE's match structure, in terms of, because New Japan, I obviously I'm a Japanese traditionalist, you know this, but I love the way that Japanese cards are ordered, in that basically you go from the least important match all the way up to the most important match of the card. So by the end, you get to what you've been waiting for all night. In American cards, you tend not to get what you've been waiting for all night at the end. You get it midway through. So, like, really, Kofi and Bryan was the main match that really everyone was now looking forward to. That happened, what was it, like 3/4 through the show?
I don't think it was. I was probably halfway through the main show.
Yeah. So, we all went mental in that match. It was a great match, but we were tired after that because we'd given so much. I think part of it's the fact that it's too long. Part of it's the way that they structured the matches.
You know what? Like, I've always defended WWE's style of doing things because it's kind of been the North American way, much like you're saying, you're a Japanese traditionalist and you like to see the card build. So you start off with the smallest thing and build all the way to the biggest thing in the main event. The American way has always been that you have peaks and troughs in your show. So you have bits where the crowd gets super excited and then you have bits where they can just generally cool down, not necessarily with a bad match, but something that there's going to be less reaction to because the people care less about it. But audiences have changed. Like, if you can imagine in the 90s, PWG would never have gotten over because all it is people going out to have the best match of the night in every single match. Can you imagine Smoky Mountain Wrestling? Can you imagine Jim Cornette's going out and saying to his openers, go out and steal the show? He never would say that. He'd say, make sure you don't burn the crowd out because the big guys are coming in later on and I need my main event to get over. But the crowds have changed. It's part of the reason why Jim Cornette didn't work when he was booking ROH. And it's part of the reason why I think WWE need to relook at their match structure, because maybe if they had put Kofi and Bryan towards the end of the show, maybe people wouldn't have been burnt out for the majority of the show. If you'd built like a Japanese card, maybe that would have happened. I mean, NXT, it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not nearly as long as a show, but they went a lot longer than they usually do for a takeover. It was like 3 hours 20, something like that. Mm-hmm. But every match, they just told the guys to go out there and just have the best match they could. And the crowd went nuts for absolutely everything on the show. Yeah.
And crowds don't want matches that they don't care about anymore. Like, I think they actively become less interested. It's not like it used to be where they'd still sit and watch. If there's a match where you couldn't care less and you've got no interest, people will just go on their phones. Yeah. It's not like in the 1980s where all you could do was still sit on your hands but watch the match. There are plenty of alternatives now if you're bored at a wrestling show.
Very true. And with that, I think it's time we move on to the final segment of the evening, our WrestleMania predictions.
I think we can just skip this.
No, I don't think we can.
And I think Mania should only count for one. I've had a rethink. I've had a rethink, and I think Mania only counts for one now.
I heavily disagree.
Yeah, you would.
So for those of you who didn't listen to our podcast, that was uploaded last night, was it not? Monday?
Yes.
So we did the NXT and ROH/New Japan predictions. I won one, the ROH New Japan show. You won the NXT show, which meant coming into this, we were 3-2 in your favour. And as you just alluded to, WrestleMania counts for 2. So who picked up the win, Jonathan?
It counts for 1, so therefore we're drawing.
I don't think so. I got this.
I don't remember shaking hands on it. And remember, if you don't shake hands, it's not an agreement.
Calm down. So it is now 4-3 to me because, it came down to what? One match? Because we both got most of the results right. We both got Sasha and Bayley losing the tag titles wrong because I think you thought Nia and Tamina were going to win and I thought Sasha and Bayley were going to win.
I never saw Iconics winning.
Yeah. We both got The Miz winning wrong. We both got Kurt Angle winning wrong. We both got everything else, so far as I'm aware, correct. And it came down to 3 main matches. And you were convinced that WWE would not book 3 happy babyface wins in their biggest matches.
Do you blame me, though?
I don't.
Because so many times they don't just go with the obvious things. They go, oh, like last year, like with Roman. They're like, oh, no, we're going to swerve you. We're going to do what you don't think we're going to do, even though the thing that we should do is the logical thing, and therefore we should do it.
So I predicted Kofi, Becky and Seth to go over in the 3 big matches. You predicted Kofi, Becky and Lesnar. So thank you, Seth Rollins.
Brock, you let me down. Thank you for letting me down, but you let me down.
And that means that I came away with the win and 2 points for this show, which puts me 4-3 in the lead.
Are we going to do the two?
Do you remember when we announced how we were going to do the predictions over Mania weekend and you said something to the effect of you were going to leave leading 6-1? I seem to recall something about that.
I'm going to do the politician thing now. I can't recall.
Yeah. Are you going to do the Arsene Vega thing? I didn't see it.
No, I can't recall.
Yeah. Well,
I do think we need to possibly look at making all of like the big 5 now really are two pointers. I don't know what you think.
Yeah.
Like Money in the Bank's coming up pretty soon now. Like Money in the Bank's a big. It's like a big 5 now, isn't it?
I think we should probably just do
Mania,
but also do Wrestle Kingdom as the other big one.
And that can count for 3 because it's much better and much more important.
It will mark the final prediction show we do, because we did our first podcast on the January 4th Dome show from this year, so we will be running this prediction game all the way up until Wrestle Kingdom next year.
There needs to be some kind of forfeit or prize, doesn't there, for the loser or the winner?
Yeah, we'll come up with something. We'll let you know next time. We've got our predictions coming up. But as I am in the lead, I will take a bow. That's me bowing. And with that...
This is me hating.
Yes, well, you're always really cocky when you win, so I feel like I need to be too.
Ugh.
So with that, we'll be back on Friday with our regular show. We'll do Raw
and
SmackDown,
after Mania.
NXT, 205 Live, all the usual stuff.
Yeah.
And we'll recap any news, because I know we haven't covered it in this episode, and I do think there's quite a bit of news that's come out in the past day or so.
Yeah,
so
there is.
We will cover all of that on Friday, but with that being said, is there anything you'd like to add, Jonathan, before we get out of here?
No, it's been a really great WrestleMania weekend, and I think we're glad to sort of be returning back to normality.
Yes, I have enjoyed it, but if you'd asked me it when we were travelling home at 5:45 in the morning on Sunday night/Monday morning,
yeah,
I would not have said the same thing.
I'm just worn out now.
And sorry, we're out of time. We'll see you on Friday on the Two Man Booth.